Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Louisiana Emergency Management Disability and Aging Coalition Lunch and Learn for the month of September. I am delighted to introduce the person whose the Lunch and Learns were her brainchild. So if you have enjoyed the Lunch and Learns each month, which we can tell by the attendance that they are very much enjoy, you can credit that to Molly Tennant. Molly is the FEMA Disability Integration Specialist who is assigned to Louisiana. I call her our FEMA person. She belongs to us, and we are really glad that she does. And so, Molly, I am going to turn it over to you to do the introductions and to host this lunch and learn. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and welcome everybody. And thank you for choosing to spend your lunch hour with us. We know that there are plenty of other things you could be doing, and if you are joining from Louisiana, plenty of dining options out there that are probably more appealing than a webinar. So we truly appreciate that. For those who haven't joined before, we are the Louisiana Emergency Management, Aging, and Disability Coalition. We have members across the state who are self-advocates, FEMA, the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs, the Governor's Office of Homeland Security, DCFS, Health and Human Services, and many other statewide organizations, nonprofits, and other self-advocates across the state. If you are interested in joining, we are always looking for new membership because, the best way to serve the disability, the aging, anyone with access and functional needs before, during, and after a disaster is to include those who are living with access and functional needs in the planning. Sometimes we are one-sided. I know that I have a disability, but many times I often only think of what my needs are, and I may not understand somebody else's needs. So having you guys share with us and help us, we can be very well-rounded in our approach. So if you're interested, feel free to post that in the chat with your email, and we'd be happy to follow up with you, reach out, and get you added to our group. Today, we are talking about housing modification, just housing in general. There is a housing shortage, as we know, across not just Louisiana, but the entire country. And not only is there just a shortage for anybody looking for a place to live, but especially for those with access and functional needs. One of my favorite movies growing up was Peter Pan. And on the current housing market, we often refer to housing as Peter Pan housing. And I think one of the things that I liked about Peter Pan was that Peter Pan stayed young forever and was able-bodied, and nothing ever changed. So in the home modification world, we refer to Peter Pan housing because the homes in our communities are not designed to age and change and adapt with us as we face mobility issues or losing hearing and vision as we get older. Our houses don't change with us. As we face disability, those homes don't change with us. We think about what the American dream is. It's the 2-story home with like a huge fenced yard. And for me, I became disabled at age 30. I have an ostomy. I struggle with hydration. I have a medical port. And for me, when I moved to Louisiana, I had an apartment. It was on the 3rd floor, and with the heat, I was getting sick just going up and down the stairs. And I knew it wasn't a realistic living situation for me. But I also didn't think that home ownership was obtainable for me because I felt that one of the things I loved about my apartment was that I didn't have to do any of the yard maintenance. If anything broke, I didn't have to be the one who was responsible for repairing it. So this was before I knew about the senior real estate specialist designation. I did go to a real estate agency and I said, look, I want to buy a house. But what I really need is a house that can help me cope with the challenges that I face on a daily basis. I have my emotional support dog who is sitting here with me, being annoying. And I knew that for me to realistically have a place that was going to help me, I needed a fenced in yard. I was also concerned about taking care of my yard. And I mentioned all of these things to my real estate agent, and they were able to connect me with a yard care professional in my area. There's even a service, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but they come and they pick up my dog's poop every couple of weeks for me, so I don't have to. And it was so handy because living with these additional life challenges, I've gone to resource fairs, I've done research online, but there's an abundance of resources and information out there. But as you get into them, sometimes you realize I don't qualify for this one. And after a couple of websites and a couple of reading pamphlets, I tend to get frustrated and just shut down and not want to cope with it. So maybe you find yourself in a place where you want to buy a house, or you want to downsize, you want to sell your home, maybe move into an apartment complex instead. But there are so many different things that we need to consider when it comes to how we manage our disability and how we make choices, because every choice we make affects our independence, our safety, and our security, and our additional high cost of medical care. So I got very interested in the senior real estate specialist designation when I was getting an executive certificate in home modification. And I'm excited to have Tasha here today. She is a real estate out of Hammond, Louisiana.
Correct.
She has the SRES designation, and she is here today to share about how professionals with this designation can assist with, home sales, different types of funding solutions for homes, different types of professionals they can connect you with to make the transition to sustainable long-term living possible, because many studies have shown that aging and staying in place is best for the mental health of those who are aging and those with disabilities. So I'm excited to introduce to you today Tasha Lampkin Dameron,
Thank you.
CRES, to share with us.
Hi, I'm Tasha Dameron, and I live in Hammond, Louisiana. I am the managing broker for my firm, Simply Real Estate, and I have multiple designations, but one of the designations that I have is the senior real estate specialist. This drew me for multiple reasons why I wanted this designation. One, I am 51 years old, so I'm about to be in that senior category of the 55 and above. And two, I already have so many seniors that I help in transitioning into long-term care, downsizing, and so forth. It's a big challenge. There's not as many properties that are available on the market in general, much less for people with disabilities or aging people that require additional modifications. So right now, I'm going to give you all a little background for the numbers. NAR puts together information across each year about housing statistics, and 7% of the generation right now are the silent generation. These are people that are ages 74 to 94. The boomers are making up the largest people aging right now at 21%. That's people from 65 to 75. And then there are the Generation X, which I fall in, of 15%, which are generally from ages 55 to 64. There are communities that pop up that are 55 and older, which is fine for 55 people. But those are generally smaller, downsized homes, townhomes, 2 bedrooms most of the time. You must have a requirement to be 55 years old or older to live in those. Depending on what your medical situation is, depends on how you want to look at aging in place, downsizing, or even like she was speaking about, Molly was talking about going into rentals. Everyone doesn't think they're going to get old, or doesn't believe that they're going to get a disability or have a health issue that comes up that's going to modify their existing, way of life. So what we try to do is we try to get to what their needs are. What are your needs now? What are your needs for the future? What are the needs that you would like to see happen down the way? If you are in a larger home and you're an empty nester, like me, I'm about to be an empty nester, I don't need a larger home anymore. I'm at that age in my life where I don't want to be a slave to, cleaning this house and keeping up the yard. So my generation, Generation X, and a lot of the boomers that are getting ready to retire right now are in that stage where they're ready to go ahead, tap into my equity and move on to something that's going to fit me a little bit better as my needs go. What most people seem to think in that stage one is that I'm going to be healthy for the rest of my life. Everything's going to be great. What I have found, what I'm working with right now, are some clients that they're in their late 70s, early 80s. And we downsized them from a large home 6 years ago to a smaller home that modifications were made for a wheelchair and so forth. But unfortunately, 6 years later, the wife has now gotten dementia and they require 24-hour care. So now we're prepping their home for sale as they just have transitioned into assisted living. So getting to the root of what you actually need, the first thing I like to do when I meet with clients is to find out what their needs are. What would you like to see happen? What do you feel like you can handle? What do you need? Some people are trying to set themselves up for their later years, and they may be handy right now. So they may want to go ahead and downsize to a smaller home, and they can make some modifications themselves. Some people require the modifications to be made prior to it. It really just depends on what your individual needs are. So I have a couple other little things I'd like to share with you, just some kind of general information of the amount of people that are actually not only looking for homes, but are looking for homes that will fit their physical needs. Right now, there are the number one reason why people generally want to sell their home in that silent generation, which is your most elder of generations, 74 to 94, and 65 to 73, 55 to 64. So your top 3 people that are aging out right now and are downsizing, the number one reason they want to sell is they want to be closer to family. They want to be closer to family because most of them, not only do they want to be close to family, but they're going to need help in their golden years. So that's the number one reason why most people want to sell. Number 2 is the downsizing. Number 3 happens to be the life changes or that the upkeep becomes too much. So, everyone's financial situation is different, depending on what they've budgeted for retirement and so forth. Those needs are what we try to focus on. We try to focus on the customer themselves, the client, what they need, not what I want, what I think they need, what they need. They have 3 different stages when you're getting older, what they call it the go-go years. And this is people when they first retire, 50s, 60s, they're pretty healthy, they're able to go ahead and do most things that they did before they retired. Then we have the slow go years. The slow go years are I've been retired for a while. I'm starting to get older, maybe physically I'm not quite as much as I used to be. And I'm not going as much. These are generally the people who start to say, okay, maybe it's time that we go ahead and we need to downsize and make that, change. Then we have aging in place people. Aging in place are what I think you're probably more interested in on the disability side. These are people who want to stay in their home. This is their home. They love it. And this is where sometimes they need a real estate professional just for help and putting together a list of quality people that we know and can trust to help them modify their home so they can stay in place. Those are probably the most vulnerable people because they're older, they are usually not mobile, and they need people to help them. They need agencies to go for resources. They need trusted people to get the work done and not take advantage of them. And then we have a very last stage. We call them no-goes. These are people who can no longer take care of themselves. Most of them are in some form of assisted living, whether it is a full assist or it's a partial, or they need to downsize to nursing homes, or they have to have people come in to take care of them. So, the most important thing for any real estate agent is to stop and listen to what their clients' needs are now and help them plan for the future. One thing Molly did touch upon was when she said she was looking for a rental. Whenever you have a disability, there's the Disability Act that prohibits people from discriminating. But what I like to do when I sit down with clients who are looking for rentals for disabilities is to find out what their number one priorities are, how their day-to-day life, what they need to look at. Most properties, I would say, I wouldn't say some, I would say generally properties are not handicap accessible because those rentals generally go very first and foremost. What we like to do and what I like to do is sit down and find out what are the things that must be modified and look and see if there's a way that I can reach out to landlords and see if they're one available, if they're interested, if it can be done. Sometimes there are some rentals that are so antiquated and older that the modifications that you may need may not be even able to be done. There are some that, for time constraints, or they're maybe not big enough, or maybe they can make one modification, but they can't make all the modifications. And you may need one of the modifications that can't be made more than others. Each situation is completely different. So it's the most important thing is to stop and listen to what your client's needs and wants are, and to try and meet as many of those that you can, and understand that it takes some time. It takes, perseverance. And sometimes, that may not even be the option that you need. You need, financially, you may need to do something else. So the biggest thing is communication and finding out what's available and what they need. Are there any questions or comments or things that I might could answer for people? Hello.
So here's one question.
There you go. Sorry.
What are the funding streams to help caregivers of elderly or disabled family members make homes more accessible, or help with flooding, help with updating floors, roofs, etc.?
Well, it depends on what they're doing. If they're selling their home and moving to a facility, that's probably going to have it. Or if they're maybe doing a reverse mortgage and then they're trying to stay into the home and make those modifications, or if they're selling and they're wanting to purchase a home that's, smaller, and taking those proceeds and working that into our contract, whether it's a new build or getting all of those things done prior. Like I said, it really depends. Everyone's financial situation is different, what they plan for, what they haven't planned for. As far as the government funds that are available, I mean, the Council on Aging here does a great job of trying to help the seniors and direct them to different things that are available. I hope that answers it somewhat of your question.
We have another question. Can HELOC, seems like an acronym, HELOC
Right.
loan be used for home modifications?
Of course, a HELOC is a second mortgage on your home. So you can take those funds and do whatever you want. You still own your home. It is a second mortgage. So yes, that's a way for a current homeowner to tap into their equity to make those modifications.
And is this program only based in Hammond or is it statewide?
Oh, no, HELOCs are nationwide. I mean, any institution, most people who have a mortgage, their current mortgage would offer second mortgages, which is a HELOC. A HELOC is just a line of credit where you're only, but it's secured by a second mortgage, where you're only drawing off. You may have like $50,000 on your second mortgage and you may only need 10. You're only paying the interest and the payments off of what you've drawn off your line. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, I have 12 and a half years in mortgage experience. That's what I did before I became a real estate agent. I actually did lending.
Good. Well, thank you. We appreciate your expertise in sharing it with us. We have another question. Are there resources available to assist in making home more energy efficient to help on energy bills?
Oh, yes. I mean, solar, everywhere you look, there are solar places. Again, the Council on Aging and I just went blank. Our local agency that raises money for our it's not TARC, it's oh my goodness, I just went blank. There's multiple places that again, like a Council of Aging, United Way, sorry, that's what it was. United Way, your local United Way also sets up. There are actually groups of people that will help the elderly. I know a good friend of mine is a pastor. He's a Baptist minister, and they have Carpenters for Christ, and they look for projects, one project a month that they go through counseling with aging and different agencies to see if there are seniors that may not have the means or the funds or the ability to make small modifications. Say they need a ramp for their wheelchair. Those Carpenters for Christ will come and donate their time and the materials and build them for them. So of course, there's always more need than there are volunteers, but that is also a way that you need to be connected into your community to see what is available out there. There are nonprofits, there are organizations like this that just want to generally help, and there are state agencies and so forth.
I appreciate that response. We have some other questions, but oh, and I see Lynette as actually asking the question that I was gonna ask. Like, and you might not know it, but other people may know that's on, and we'll be glad if they would answer it. Like, is there a list of them, what locally to know where to access? Because I think that they have those type of programs you're talking about in some areas. There's some local organizations that just do that type of good work, and some places, unfortunately, don't have that as much accessibility to those type of volunteers and nonprofit type services. So just wondering if there's
I don't know about that, but I would assume that most places, most parishes or counties would have, United Way in their area. They would have some kind of aging on counseling. They would have somebody, whether it be in their city or their parish or their state, that should be able to kind of give them who can handle that. I mean, I wish I knew more about that. Maybe Molly, do you know more about where they could go to see what state agencies and federal agencies would be available for those things? I would probably assume the Department of HUD.
Yeah, absolutely. They can go to the Department of HUD. But I know that Bambi and I also maintain a list of these resources. So, and we do have our monthly newsletter that Governor's Office of Disability Affairs puts out. And we do often in them highlight like specific resources. We have a book of the month. And then of course there's like contact information. So you're able to reach out to our group and ask for those resources as well. And I know on the site we also have, there is a list of resources. So we're always here. We're always willing and able to provide resources when anybody needs them.
I know with veterans, like they always check the local VA, and the VA here locally in Hammond can put you together with anything that's veteran related, I should say, that's available in our area. So I would assume, like she said, is there a way that everyone that's signed in for this Zoom can get a copy of that or a link to that?
Yes, we'll send an email
Okay.
to everyone with all the resources. So if someone sends something to me that they would like it to be sent out to everybody who attended, just do that, and I'll put my email address in the
Perfect.
chat. We have another question here that says, single mom of a disabled young adult, and I'm moving to Louisiana so we can be near family and have support. I am noticing the rental prices are super expensive and I can't purchase just yet. Any advice or a rental assistant to make rentals more affordable? My son wants to live independently, but can't with just SSI.
That is a nationwide problem. Rents are at an all-time high. A lot of people are priced out of this market. We have a nationwide crunch on homes that are affordable. There are homes that are available, but affordable is probably the number one thing that I would say. Every day we have people call for rentals. Rentals go very fast if they're halfway decent, and the days are long gone past where you can find in my area, especially where I am, that there's a 2-bedroom, rental for under $1,000. I mean, it's very scarce. I do know that there are the Department of HUD, I believe it is, when they do like Section 8 housing, there is a long list of people that are awaiting Section 8. And there's very few people here that offer it. So that would be one resource I would say, because I know that is based off of your income and your ability to pay. I don't know what else you could do immediately if you're moving here, unless does your son have a caregiver, or does like the doctor's office that he deals with, maybe they have some resources also that I might be unfamiliar with? Molly, what do you have, again, another link, right, to things that would be available?
Yes, I do get the HUD listings
Okay.
for Louisiana, so I do have access to those.
I have the HUD listings also, but most of those, if he's priced out of rental, he's going to probably be priced out of that. And most of the HUD, like foreclosures and things that we have, need a lot of work. So not only do they need modification, but they need a lot of work.
I think a lot, I know for me, when I was living in an apartment, a lot of, getting the modifications that I needed, especially since you're moving to Louisiana, is making sure before you do move here that you meet with your doctors, explain the situation, make sure that you get everything documented and put into a letter. I came with an emotional support animal. I came with specific needs for heating and cooling, and space requirements for storing all of my durable medical equipment. And I managed to get letters from all of my doctors stating why I needed these accommodations and exactly what I needed. So when I did go shop around for apartments, I was able to bring all of that paperwork with me, and state it up front and start the conversation
From your
that
colleague,
way. I'm
DHRC's
sorry for
disaster
my
recovery work
Alexa likes to likes to interrupt me sometimes. But I was able to bring all that documentation with me and start the conversation with, I do have some needs. I may need some modifications, and explain them up front to see if they were willing to work with me before I did actually go tour and spend a lot of time investing in paying application fees and getting emotionally attached to a unit.
You just said one thing really important. You said paying application fees. Once you pay one set of application fees and they run a credit and a background check, ask for a copy of that. So before you go, if that doesn't work out and you go to multiples, ask them first and foremost, I've just had this done. Can you use that? That's another little tool instead of spending money that's unnecessary. You can always ask for that, because I, as a broker, when I've had someone that's applied and maybe that they didn't get that, I ask, we've already spent this money. Would you use this? We just did this. And a lot of times it's just a conversation, and most of the time they will take it.
And a follow-up to that as well, that medical documentation that you're able to obtain stating needs and everything. Maybe you come here and you pick a unit that doesn't completely meet all of your needs, while you continue to hunt for something that does. And then when you find that, you can meet with your doctors again and say, I'm living in this situation right now. These are the things that are not meeting my needs, but I have found this other option that is a much better fit for me. I was able to break my lease early without paying any fees, because I had my doctor write me a letter and say, this unit just can't provide her what she's given. The needs what she really needs is I needed a backup generator. And that wasn't something that an apartment complex was going to see as a reasonable accommodation, because it would have been a financial burden on them. So my doctor was able to write me a letter, and they let me out of my lease when I needed it. And I didn't have to pay any fees to get out of that unit. But then also that documentation for an emotional support animal, which honestly, I believe that anybody who is going through the changes of aging or has a disability or medical condition that they cope with, if you have a pet, I promise you that pet makes you smile and laugh, and it is considered an emotional support animal for you. Obtaining that documentation from your doctor can also eliminate the pet fees every month, the pet rent, the pet penalty. So it's also documentation that does not only help you get the modifications that you need, get you out of a lease when you need to, but also can make it more affordable when housing is already unaffordable.
All good points.
And y'all, we have Sherry Crane with the Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs. We're going to take a 10-minute break because we need to give our interpreters a break. So we'll come back at 12:43. Sherry, I'm using you as to pull everybody back in for the great information you're going to give. And then we have some great questions in the chat. Continue to put those questions and we'll answer it when we come back. Let's make it 12:44.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. We're back. And I believe Molly is going to read through our questions. But first, we're going to have Sherry Crane with Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs share some information.
Good afternoon, everybody. Tasha, I want to thank you, first of all, for promoting the Council on Aging, because that's most of what we deal with is the Council on Aging. And I wanted to give everybody just a toll-free number we have to what we call our ADRCs, which is our Aging and Disability Resource Centers. We have one in different regions throughout the state. So we have 8 of those regions. If you call the toll-free number, I'm going to say it in just a minute, I'll give you the number. You can choose which parish you're in, and it will redirect you to that specific ADRC. And they will be able to tell you what resources are available in that area for those things, such as Tasha mentioned, a wheelchair ramp or a handrail or whatever it might be. And they change from region to region, depending on those vendors that do want to donate their services or donate their time. Some just want to donate material. So each of our resource centers will know that information. The toll-free number is 1-877-340-9100. And you're more than welcome to call our office as well. I'm going to give you that number. It's 225-342-7100. And our operator can also, they will ask you what parish you reside in, and then they will give you the number to that specific ADRC in that area, in that region, and they'll be able to help you. So thank you for letting me share, Bambi. I appreciate that.
Terry, can you share that 800 number?
Absolutely. It's toll free, 1-877-340-9100.
All right, thank you for that. Getting back into the questions, we have time for one more before we do our closing comments. I do see there are some people that do have more specific questions about their cases. If you look in the chat box, I have put in the link for where you can find a real estate agent in your area with the SRES designation. So this is a nationwide program. So whether you're joining from Louisiana or somewhere else across the country, there are SRES agents in your location who are willing and ready to help at any time. So I do see.
I would add that if you're here and you want to move to another location, if you reach out to me, I would be more than happy to refer someone in that area because it is a national database.
Absolutely, that's awesome. And I'm sure before we close, Tasha will share her contact information. I do see a question. Are there opportunities to include in plain language flood risk, flood rating info before buying or renting? Information to mitigate flood risk before buying a home, such as flood insurance, waterproof basements, cleaning gutters, elevate and anchor utilities. Sometimes folks, older adults and people with disabilities don't understand their risk, and areas more prone to flooding are often cheaper areas to buy or rent homes. Risk reduction is sometimes not accessible at all. So this is another area that I'm widely passionate about is hazard mitigation. When you are buying a home, some of the documentation that the seller has to fill out, one of the forms is called a seller's disclosure. And there are actually questions on that form related to flooding, specifically asking if this property has ever flooded before, and if it has received FEMA funding for flooding. So they do have to disclose that. And also, if you are renting, ask the landlord, but if not, I'm also dropping a link right now that does take you to, it is a FEMA page. It is part of our flood mitigation program, but you can just pop in any address that you're looking at and it'll come up with the risk. Understanding risk can be difficult. It's one of the things that I work on with my realtor when I was buying, and they can explain to you what the risk means. The website also explains what the different risks mean. There are some risk levels that your mortgages will require you to have flood insurance, but there are other areas that don't require you to have flood insurance. I will say, working with our hazard mitigation department within FEMA, that I have learned that a little over 40% of flood claims are actually from properties outside of flood zones. And that once you do receive FEMA, once a property, regardless of who owns it, receives FEMA funding for flooding, that property does need to maintain insurance. especially living with a disability and increased living expenses. One of the things that I noticed is affordability of mitigation. For every dollar spent on mitigation, it saves you $3 in renovation and repairs, which I know still feels unattainable. For me, one of the things to ask the seller is if they currently have flood insurance, regardless of whether or not that they have filed a claim on it before. And if they have, if it is possible that you can grandfather in under their policy. So the house transfer the policy, which I call grandfathering, but it is transferring.
Because it's generally cheaper.
It is cheaper. So I looked for my own and it was $1,100 a year. But when I was able to transfer the policy, I was able to take their policy for $600 a month. I will say, I'm taking
600 a year.
Yes, a year. What am I saying? A month.
600 a month is a lot.
Definitely a month, not a year. I will say, taking off my FEMA hat, I'm not wearing a FEMA shirt today. One of the things that I have found that is something I've discussed is the cost burden of our NFIP insurance policies, because you do have to pay the entire premium
up
front. And I will look into this for another webinar for a different month. I ended up going with a flood insurance policy through National General Insurance called Beyond Floods. And it has a very low monthly payment. There is a high deductible. My deductible is $5,000. However, I know that there are nonprofits and other agencies out there that can assist with the burden of deductibles.
Is that a private flood?
It is private flood insurance, and I want to say that my payment is $54 a month for the premium, which I find very much more affordable with my medications and everything having to...
I think the only program that you can't, that they won't allow the private flood in lieu of the FEMA flood is, or national, is FHA. That's the only one that I don't think will allow it. Everybody else will allow you to have conventional. VA, RD will allow you to have a private flood, which is generally less expensive.
Which is a really good topic that I definitely think that we need to explore on a different in a different month. With that, we are at 12:52, so there are a couple other things before we close out, and thank Tasha for her time, and she will share her contact information. Next month, look for it in the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs newsletter. Our topic next month will be on FEMA's resilience analysis and planning tool, which is one of my favorite things to learn, to use when I'm learning about the different demographics in different communities and where we should target resources, where we should learn from the communities. And my coworker Benjamin Rance will be presenting, and he's going to run a demonstration on how to use this program to understand the demographics in the areas that you live, how to use these demographics if you are going to apply for grant money, if you are looking for different ways to different audiences to target in engaging in your emergency action planning. So I'm really, really excited for that. Also, if you received our newsletter, if not, make sure you sign up on Governor's Office of Disability Affairs. But we are having an inclusive art contest. You have until October 30th to submit the work. This year's theme is Nothing About Us Without Us, which is my absolute favorite because this is such a flexible theme for art, because whether you're going to inclusive dance classes, whether you're doing inclusive recreation, whether it's, home modification, anything that includes people with disabilities, whether it's planning. I mean, you could put, do a painting of people at a meeting table discussing and including people with disabilities. Opportunities for that theme are absolutely endless. There are also the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs annual awards. And the nomination forms can be found online. There's tons of different categories for best educator, best service provider of the year. So I'm really excited to attend those awards and meet some of the amazing people who are serving our disability community here in Louisiana. With that, I'm going to let Tasha close out and share her contact information. And we hope that you enjoyed spending your lunch with us and that you decide to spend your lunch with us next month as well.
Well, I just put it in the chat. I put my name and my company and my phone, my cell phone number and my email. So if you have any questions that, you know, are a little bit odd or don't fit any of these things, I will be more than happy to answer them. You can give me a call or a text or an email. And if I don't know the answer to your question, I assure you I will get to the bottom and try to locate someone who does for you. And if you have any other questions that I could help you with, I'll be more than happy to lend my information. And I thank y'all for inviting me. This was very informative.
Bambi, would you like to close out?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Tasha for all of the great information, for Molly for hosting it. And just really appreciate everyone who joined in, and we really appreciate you accessing these lunch and learns every month, and hope that you find them as meaningful as we do. So thank you all, and you have a great rest of your day and week.
Thank y'all.